They walked past the wax sculptures of Charlemagne and Napoleon, the dioramas showing French newsmakers of the day, Louis Pasteur inventing the rabies vaccine, the construction of the Eiffel Tower, recreations of famous paintings, the death of Marat, the raft of Medusa. The press didn't use photography in those days, not yet, so a Parisian newspaperman named Arthur Meyer cooked up the idea of a wax museum, the first of its kind in Europe, the Musée Grévin, a place where the public could at last put a face to the people in the news. But today, the public was here for something else, something new, not to witness scenes from history or the recent past, but to buy a ticket, about $5 in today's money, and see history in the making, and by extension, to become part of history itself. On that day in 1892, in the Cabinet Fantastique, a small theater in the back of the musée, the gentlemen removed their top hats and bowlers and took their seats along with the ladies, and the house lights dimmed, and the pianist tickled a tinkling melody on the keys. A pair of tasseled velvet curtains parted to reveal a blank silver screen behind it, and behind the screen, unseen, was Charles-Emil Reynaud and his invention that would forever change our imaginations. Its 36 perfectly positioned mirrors and rotating spoked wheels and hand cranks and concentrated light, which shone through the screen and projected a painted image of illustrated characters onto the screen, and then another image, similar to the first, but with the characters in a slightly different position, and then another, and another, and another, too quickly for the eye to register them individually, creating the illusion of moving objects, moving bodies, the appearance of motion and vitality, the illusion of life. Images projected on screen were nothing new. The magic lantern, an early form of the slide projector, was a common form of entertainment, and simple motion could be achieved with the magic lantern by layering one slide over the other and moving one of the slides by hand or with a mechanism. But on that day, in the Cabinet Fantastique, an audience was among the first people anywhere to see a projected animated cartoon. Before silent films or the talkies, before matinee idols and double features, there was Charles-Emil Reynaud, the 48-year-old science teacher and photographer and inventor, and his show, the Luminous Pantomimes, made of 500 individual images hand-painted onto gelatin slides and cranked by hand through Reynaud's theater Optique, projecting 10 minutes of entertainment unlike anything the world had seen before. Life-size images glowing and living on a silver screen, like a waking dream. And nearly 20 years later, he would throw it all away. Literally. The images, the equipment. Charles-Emil Reynaud would throw all of it into the river. I'm Brian Earl, and this is Illusion. Humans are driven to create. Making art is one of the defining characteristics of our species, across all cultures and all times throughout history. One of the first things a child learns to do, instinctively, before acquiring language. A child grips a crayon and realizes the power to change what he sees in front of him, to bring his imagination into the external world. Maybe it all starts with some compelling urge to make representations of the things we see in the natural world around us. The earliest known cave paintings date back at least 35,000 years, maybe more. Our ancient ancestors mixed dirt or charcoal with animal fat to create a crude pigment, found novel ways to apply it to the craggy stone surfaces of caves, smeared with fingers, blown through hollowed-out animal bones like an airbrush, edges smoothed and blended with feathers, lines drawn with twigs. And more than a drive to create, we're fascinated with the very idea of creation itself, the act of bringing new things into being. We've told and retold myths and legends to account for our own creation, how the world came to be and be the way that it is, how we came to be, and how our story ends. We've invented gods and monsters, fantastical creatures, imagined worlds, heavens, and hells, by the thousands. And just maybe those two driving forces, our desire to create and our fascination with the mysteries of life itself, explains our need to create something that appears to be living, a creation that gives the illusion of life. Among those early cave paintings are animals drawn in a running position, legs stretched in opposite directions, a kinetic arch in the back, an upward tilt of the head. Paintings found later show twice as many legs, simulating how the eye is fooled into seeing double from motion blur. The idea of imparting life and motion to pictures is as old as humanity itself, and we've never given up trying to breathe life and movement into pictures. Sculptures and paintings and illustrations achieve this goal to some extent, capture energy and movement, inner forces, personality, emotion, struggle, freezing a moment in time. And throughout our history, artists continued to search for a medium that would capture that elusive spark of life. The animated cartoon is an illusion within an illusion. Life is simulated by mimicking the natural movements and expressions and postures that signify purpose and intent and emotion. A playful spring in the step, a heavy droop in the shoulders, a quizzical tilt of the head. It lets us empathize with cartoon drawings as we would with other people, to imagine feelings and inner lives, thoughts and hopes, allows us to ascribe human qualities to animals and objects. And secondly, by tricking the eye into thinking it's seeing movement by changing static images faster than the eye can perceive. This gap in our senses, known as persistence of vision, is what creates the illusion of motion. It was first described to the Royal College of Physicians in London in 1824 by a physician named John Paris, who demonstrated the concept by rotating a disc with different pictures on either side and attached to two pieces of string. When the string is twirled, the disc spins quickly and the images appear to blend into a single image. The rotating disc device, known as a thaumatrope, became a popular novelty toy in the 19th century. Nearly a decade later, the Belgian physicist Joseph Plateau introduced the phenakistoscope, the first animation device that created a fluent illusion of motion. It was a spinning cardboard disc attached to a handle, and arranged around the disc's center is a series of images showing sequential phases of the animation. Small rectangular slits are spaced evenly around the rim of the disc. When the user would spin the disc and look through the moving slits as the image is reflected in a mirror, there appears to be a single moving picture. Somersaulting acrobats, prancing horses, a dancing couple locked in an embrace, forever twirling gracefully around and around and around. And they were a sensation. The phenakistoscope caught the attention of a mathematician named George Homer, who thought up a simple variation that he called the zoetrope, which was a cylinder with slits cut vertically into the sides. On the inner surface of the cylinder was an interchangeable paper band with images from a set of sequenced pictures. As the cylinder spins, the user looks through the slits at the pictures, producing the illusion of motion. Charles-Emil Reynaud had been fascinated with these inventions, read about them in the scientific literature, and tinkered with improvements and innovations. And in 1877, he introduced the praxinoscope, a device like the zoetrope, but it replaced the narrow viewing slits with an inner circle of mirrors, which produced a brighter and smoother animation effect than its predecessor. But all of these were little more than toys, useful only to a single viewer and consisting of about 12 images playing in an endless loop. Reynaud wanted something bigger and better. He traded the short paper picture strips for a long band of gelatin slides, with holes between each image, like the perforations on a film strip, pulled along by a wheel with teeth to catch the holes, all cranked steadily by hand. Reynaud hunched over the contraption, keeping time with the pianist's melody. The concentrated light shining through the slides and reflected off the mirrors in the center of the wheel, reflected back into another mirror and projected onto a screen. Now the animated cartoon had become a long-form art medium and a form of public entertainment, and his Luminous Pantomimes at the Musée Grévin was an instant success, selling out 5 daily performances and attracting nearly 500,000 people to the 7 shows he produced during an 8-year run. And it only got better from there. The invention of the motion picture camera and film were just years away. And among the first real animated films was a stop-motion image on a chalkboard, a cartoon character that appeared to draw itself and change facial expressions, and then modern animation techniques with transparent cells layered over stationary backgrounds, and sound, feature-length films, color, the development and maturing of a visual language and style for animated cartoons, animators learning to think like actors, figuring out how to show emotions, conveying a feeling through touch, posture, gesture, devising techniques for believably portraying movement, weight, mass, physical laws. All of that left Reynaud behind, who had been looking ahead and thought that his theater Optique had a future with a series of photographed poses instead of drawings. His patent filing for the invention covered the use of photographs, and he even saw his dream realized in 1895. But he found himself woefully outmoded by the invention of the cinematograph, an early film camera which had its first public screening that same year, and led to further innovations and inspired a next generation of artists and dreamers, who conjured up characters like Betty Boop, Popeye the Sailor, Felix the Cat, Mickey Mouse, and sell enchantment at 24 frames per second, in darkened theaters, on vaudeville stages, audiences marveling at the novelty that we take for granted today, the ability to make animals talk, to defy the known laws of physics, to create new worlds and creatures, bring imagination to life. People were seeing all of that for the first time, and it was amazing. By 1910, Reynaud was penniless, forgotten, dejected, so he threw the greater part of his masterwork, hundreds of hand-painted slides, mirrors and wheels and electric lights, hand cranks and gears, threw all of it into the Seine, less than a mile from the Musée Grévin, where 18 years earlier a new art form tricked the eye into believing it was seeing motion in life. The Luminous Pantomimes and their scenes of enchantment glowing on the silver screen. Illusion is written and produced by me, Brian Earl. Search for Illusion Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and find show notes, etc. at illusionpodcast.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and if you like the show, please tell a friend and leave a rating and review. These are quick and painless ways to show support, and it helps the show to grow.